friends, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my top 15 of 2019. So all of these books are books that I gave 5 out of 5 stars to and I just absolutely loved, and I'm gonna start at number 15 and work my way up to number 1, and I'm sure you guys all know at least what number 1 to maybe 3 are, but I'm just so excited. I read a lot of amazing books in 2019. It was a really great reading year for me, not only because of all the great books I read, but also because I just restarted my reading journey, and I don't know, I haven't really read anything before this past year for a while. I read the Harry Potter series and that's about it, but I'm just so excited to be back in the reading world, and oh, I just love these stories. And yeah, that's really all I have to say in kind of a preface to this, so let's just jump right on in. So the very first book that is on this list at number 15 of the year is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This tells the story of Laszlo Strange, who is a librarian orphan, and he dedicates almost all of his time to this city of Weep, which is a lost city, and all he wants to do is discover what's going on in the city and why it's disappeared off the map and everything. So he is just so obsessed and so passionate about the city, and one day he is given the opportunity to visit the city, and he takes that opportunity, of course, and it's just a really great book. My buddy read this with two lovely ladies and it was a really great experience, and I'm just really happy I read it. And yeah. The next book on this list at number 14 is Winterwood by Shay Earnshaw. I recently read this in December, and this tells the story of Nora Walker, who is a witch with the ability to kind of interact and walk in the woods, in these winter woods that are very dangerous and kind of scary, I guess, to a lot of this village. And near her is a boys' camp in which boys are sent at the last straw. So it's kind of like a reformatory camp, and one day a boy goes missing and a boy gets killed on the same night, and Nora is investigating what happened. So it's kind of a mystery. It's got romance elements, it's got magic. It's so good, and I just really loved it. And yeah, it took me by surprise, so I'm really happy I read this. And I believe it was the Owlcrate book. This is specifically the Owlcrate edition for November, I think is what it was. Number 13 on this list is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This tells the story of two orphans who live together, and they're Alina and Mal. Mal ends up becoming a tracker, and Alina becomes a map maker after they are tested for Grisha abilities and have been discovered that they have none. However, one day when they're in a very dangerous situation, Alina is discovered to actually have Grisha abilities, and actually very powerful Grisha abilities. So this is their story between being separated and Alina learning about her powers, and it's so good. I've heard a lot of backlash about this Grisha trilogy based on Six of Crows hype, but I honestly really loved it, really enjoyed it, and I'm happy I read it. I wish I had read it before Six of Crows just so I had that knowledge going into Six of Crows, but I'm still absolutely in love with this, and Leigh Bardugo is my author of the year for sure. And at number 12 is Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. This tells the story of three triplets who are born with special abilities. One has elemental magic, so she can control storms and weather and all that kind of thing. One is a naturalist, so she has the ability to control animals and nature, and then one has a gift for poison, so she can deal with poison and not be poisoned. She has like a higher tolerance or something along those lines. And at birth, these triplets are separated and then pit against each other to see who will be the one true queen. It's like elemental magic mixed with Hunger Games, and it's incredible, and I love it. A lot of people don't enjoy it just because it is a little bit slower. It is a lot of world building in this first book, but I do really want to reread this book and then continue on with the series in 2020. Number 11 on the list, and I think the only contemporary or romancy that's on this list entirely, is A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Tahereh Mafi, and I was absolutely shell-shocked by this book. I'm definitely not the romance contemporary lean toward kind of reader. I'm 100% like fantasy, sci-fi, magic, all that kind of stuff. But this book just grasped me, and I don't know why. It tells the story of a girl who is a Muslim in the time immediately following 9/11, and she and the kind of all-star golden boy of the high school fall in love, and it tells the experience between their journey and dealing with the hate and the racism. And yeah, it's incredible. It is so breathtaking, and I love this book so much, and I wish all contemporaries were like this. Then at number 10 on the list is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. This tells the story of a kingdom in which magic has been taken from the people who are able to conjure it, and one day Zelly is given the chance to kind of bring magic back to the kingdom, and so of course she takes it, and it's elemental magic. There's reaping, which is the ability to bring the dead kind of to their final end, and in exchange you can use their soul for whatever purpose. Oh, it's so good. It has a very Zuko and Katara relationship, and it takes so many plot twists, and oh, it's so good. But yes, this is Children of Blood and Bone. Next on this list at number 9 is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This tells the story of 4 Londons. There is Grey London, Black London, Red London, and White London, and each London is allotted its own sort of magic based on where it is in regards to the magical supply. And one London has like no magic at all, essentially it's our London, and then the other London is so overrun with magic that it's kind of desolate and barren, and it's so good. Kel is the main character, and he has the ability to travel between the Londons, and it's really good. I was hooked from the very first sentence, and I don't know why I haven't finished the series yet, but that is the goal for January of 2020. Next on this list is a book that completely took me by like complete surprise in December, and it's very high on the list for being such a recent and late to the game read. But number 8 on the list is Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. This tells the story of a girl Viking who has presumed to believe that her brother was killed in war when she was fighting along his side, and then one day when she is in war 5 years later, she actually comes up against him and one of his like teammates in the war and realizes that he's actually on the other side now, and so she gets kidnapped by this other side, and she learns about the other side, and there's a love to hate relationship, hate to love relationship. I mean, I love to hate it and I hate to love it, you know what I mean? But it's so good. There's a lot, like a ton of gore, so just a trigger warning if you're not into gore. It's very descriptive at some parts, but otherwise I think this is like one of the best hate to love relationships I've ever read, and I really enjoyed it. And I got this for like $4 at Books A Million, and I have not really heard that much hype about it, so I'm shocked because it was incredible. Next on the list at number 7 is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This tells the story of this fantastical performance that happens once a year, and you have to have an exclusive invite to join. And Scarlett and Tella are given the opportunity to experience this show. However, there is a catch. Tella is kidnapped and is then the prize. So whoever finds Tella first is then the winner of the challenge this year. So Scarlett is on the mission to find Tella and discover what's going on. The romance in this is really well done, and I was shocked at the end with what happened, and it was just so good, so I'm really happy I read it. And my like most anticipated book, or like book I want the most for Christmas, is Legendary, which is the sequel to Caraval, so we will see. I actually haven't had my Christmas with my parents and family yet, just because I was out of the country with Anthony's family for Christmas, so Sunday will be our Christmas, so we'll see if I get it. If not, I might have to use some of my Christmas money to go purchase it for myself. And sitting at number 6 on this list is The Stormcrow by Kaylin Josephson. And in this story, crows have elemental magic, or different kinds of magic, and it's so good because I haven't actually seen animals with elemental magic before, so that's really unique. It has really great mental health rep, and there's a kind of love triangle-esque feel to the book, and I personally think she should have ended up with the other person, but what do I know? And I'm so excited for the sequel. I think the sequel is called The Crow Rider, and it's coming out sometime this year, but I'm obsessed, and it's very similar to Crown of Feathers, but still very, very good. But yes, in this world, the kingdom has been taken over, and in return or in response to try to save the kingdom, Anthea is betrothed to the enemy kingdom's prince, and she is like very upset about this, so she does everything she can to not be betrothed and kind of retaliates with her crows. And down to the final 5 of my top 15 of 2019. So this book is one of the only sci-fis I read this year, but probably the best sci-fi I've ever read, hands down, and that is number 5, sitting at Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This tells the story of Spensa, who is the daughter of a man who was labeled the coward in this space war for kind of abandoning the team, and she has spent her entire life kind of living up to not being a coward, and she has so many hurdles she has to jump through because everyone's afraid that she's going to be exactly like her father. But it tells the story of her joining this flight academy and joining the war, and it's so good. Like, I didn't know I liked sci-fi before I read this book, and this absolutely solidified that I like sci-fi, and I need Starsight like as soon as possible. Then at number 4 is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the sequel to A Court of Thorns and Roses, which tells the story of Feyre, who is taken into the land of fairy against her will after killing one of the Fae, and it's a sort of retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but it's got like Hunger Games-esque elements to it. It's so good. Probably the best retelling of Beauty and the Beast I've ever read, and I just really, really enjoyed it. And yeah, this book, the romance in this was probably one of the best romances I've ever read. I was so taken aback by this book, and I don't know how I haven't read A Court of Wings and Ruin yet, and I'm very ashamed to say that, but I'm so happy that I got to experience this book this year. Number 3, down to our top 3, and winning the bronze medal, is a book that I have never shut up about on this channel, and that is Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palprato. This tells the story of a kingdom in which 2 sisters have fought on different sides of the war. One is kind of just a human, and then the other is a animage, or a person who has the ability to connect with animals on a different level. And if you are an animage, you also have the ability to be a phoenix rider in this world. And they go to war over this, and then 16 years later, Veronica has decided she wants to be a phoenix rider. However, because of the war, the whole phoenix population has been depleted, and the only way that she can join and become a phoenix rider is by joining this one academy that she happens to find that only accepts boys. So she has to disguise herself as a boy and join the academy, and it's just so good. It's got phoenixes, it's got male-male romance, it's got a strong female lead that's also sensitive. It's just incredible. And I did a book review of this book on my channel. There's no spoilers, so feel free to go watch if you would like a little bit more detail. Also, Heart of Flames, the sequel to this book, is coming out next month on February 11th, and I'm obsessed. And if you would like to read this, I'm actually reading this in January through the First Writers Street Team Crown of Feathers read-along to kind of hype up for Heart of Flames, the sequel. So pay attention to that. I will link the description or like the page down below that's doing it on Twitter if you would like to join. And number 2 on the list, these 2 final books I went back and forth with for probably a month or 2, and then around like October I think I solidified exactly which one was number 2 and which one was number 1. So sitting at number 2 is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This tells the story of Elizabeth, who is in charge of kind of guarding these grimoires, or books that are able to come to life, and right now they're dormant. But one day, Elizabeth is kind of framed for letting one of the grimoires go, and this grimoire was specifically very dangerous and attacked the town, and so she is framed, and she has to then team up with her enemy, which is a sorcerer named Nathaniel, and together they are on the quest to figure out why the grimoire escaped and who actually did it and what's going on. It was so good. I feel like this book was made for me, honestly, but like it was ahead of the #1 book for like a month or month and a half right after I finished this book, but in the end, #1 is #1. But this was so good and definitely deserves a first place spot if I hadn't read the other book. So sitting at #1, and probably the book that you all know, considering it is talked about constantly and is very displayed right behind me, and I just love this book so much. And sitting at #1 is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. As I stated, Sorcery of Thorns was very close and actually above Six of Crows for a small period of time, but in the end, this was the #1 book of the year for me, not only because it was so well written and so amazing as a story, but also it holds a very sentimental place for me because it is the very first book I read, and it actually kind of triggered me into wanting to join Booktube. So this book just means a ton to me, and it was like the first book talk I did. I don't know, I'm like getting emotional because this book means so much to me, and so therefore it's #1 on the list. And if you don't know, this tells the story of 6 misfits who go on this quest to do what they believe is save their town or their city, and it's so good. It's like a found family. It's got really great representation. It's so good. There's actually like no plot involved, honestly. Like the entire thing is just characters, and I'm okay with that because these characters are incredible. Some of my favorite characters I've ever read in my life, and I just love this book so much. So those were my top 15 books of 2019. Please let me know what your like top 2 or 3 were down below in the comments, and what you thought of the books that I read and rated at my top 15. But that is all for this video, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I will check in with you in my next video. Bye, friends!